before the castle, before the mortar, before the walls and the towers and the tapestries of royalty. There was only the hill, a quiet hill, sloped gently to the east, tucked away from the shouts of towns and the tolling bells of churches. No one spoke of this hill. It was not famous. It was not sacred. It simply was a patch of earth, covered in grass, home to the occasional beetle and the slow rustle of wind-bent weeds. Beneath its surface, stone, layered, ancient, forgotten, not marble, not gold, just stone, rough, solid, and unremarkable. And among these countless layers of earth, nestled somewhere near the surface but not quite touching air, lay a block of stone, our brick, though it wasn't a brick yet. It had no edges, no shape, no name, just a lump of silent existence. For centuries, it rested there, completely still, utterly without purpose, and content in its quiet. The sun would pass overhead, unseen. The moon would rise, cold and silent, never noticed. Seasons changed without fanfare. Spring soaked the soil above it. Summer baked the land. Autumn's chill crept downward. And winter froze everything in place. Yet still, nothing changed for the stone. A root grew once, thin and curious. It curled gently along its surface, then withdrew, searching for something softer. The stone didn't mind. It did not move. It had no thoughts, only presence. It simply was. And then, one morning, the kind of gray, cool morning that makes you pull the blanket higher over your shoulders, the silence broke. There were footsteps, boots, voices, too, low and tired. The sounds of ropes being pulled, tools being unpacked, metal scraping against rock, the soft thud of dirt being brushed away. The stone still didn't stir. Not yet. But the world around it had begun to shift. Pickaxes struck the ground, not in anger, not in haste, but in rhythm, deliberate, patient. This was not the work of soldiers or kings. This was the work of masons, men of quiet strength. Time passed, hours, maybe days, as the layers above the stone were removed. One careful swing at a time. And then, light, dim at first, filtered through dust and shadow, but light nonetheless. For the first time in its ancient life, the stone was seen, not admired, not honored, just seen. A pair of hands, wrapped in leather and calloused from years of labor, brushed along its surface. The mason tilted his head. He said nothing. He simply nodded, then lifted his chisel. There was no ceremony, no declaration, only the slow, steady work of shaping. The chisel met stone with a dull scrape. A chip fell, then another, and slowly, the stone began to take form. Edges were drawn. Flat surfaces replaced the curves. Corners were born, all beneath the rhythm of hand and hammer. Tap, pause, tap, dust rising like tiny ghosts. The stone did not resist. It could not. It only surrendered to purpose. By the end of the day, or was it the next? It was no longer just a stone. It had become a shape, a brick, not placed yet, not part of anything greater, but changed, chosen, cut free from the hillside, and laid gently beside other stones, just like it. The sun lowered in the sky, washing the field in a tired, golden light, and the stone, now a brick, lay in stillness once again, different, but unchanged in spirit. The stars came out, one by one. The world hushed, and the brick dreamed of nothing. The morning was still, the kind of morning where nothing felt urgent, where the birds sang not for attention, but out of habit. The brick, now shaped and squared, was lifted by two steady hands. It was not heavy, but it was solid. It had weight, the kind that can only come from centuries of stillness. It was placed, carefully, into a wooden cart. The cart was old. Its planks were gray with time, and its wheels creaked with every breath of movement. Straw lined its floor, not for comfort, but to prevent chips. Next to the brick were others, a quiet company of stones, each fresh from the hillside, each carved with care. None spoke. Of course not. Bricks don't whisper, but if they did, perhaps they would have shared dreams of the sky, or guesses about where they were going. The cart jerked softly as it began to move. A donkey pulled it, slow, deliberate, with a rhythm of patience. No whip, no shouts, just footsteps. Clip, clop, clip, clop. The brick shifted slightly as the wheel rolled over a rut in the path. It didn't complain. It never would. Instead, it lay still, content in its new identity, unsure of the future, but in no rush to meet it. The road was narrow and worn. Dirt mostly. 2 faint tracks where other carts had passed. Other stones, perhaps years ago. On either side, tall grasses bent in the breeze. Bees moved from flower to flower, unaware of the history riding slowly past them. The forest edge came next. Branches reached out like curious hands, light filtering through the canopy in soft, golden beams. The cart entered the shade. Cooler now, quieter. Above, a squirrel watched from a limb. Its tail twitched. It lost interest. Time passed slowly, not minutes, not hours. Just time. There was no hurry. The brick didn't need to arrive today, or tomorrow. The world moved at a pace it had always known, and the brick was part of it now. Once the cart paused, the donkey needed rest. A mason drank from a wooden cup and wiped his brow. No one looked at the brick. Why would they? It was just a brick. But the brick felt the sun again, this time from a new place. Its surface warmed gently, its edges casting the softest of shadows on the straw. It remembered the quarry, the darkness, the moment of light. Now it saw trees, sky, and above all else movement. After lifetimes of stillness, the world was in motion, and the brick was going with it. Another bump. A wheel rolled over a root. The cart wobbled. Dust floated lazily into the air. Somewhere in the distance, a stream trickled over stones. Birds chirped low. The wind whispered through leaves. The brick, along with its quiet companions, continued its ride. Villagers walked past now and then. Some glanced at the cart. None stopped. None asked where the bricks were going. But each step of the donkey, each slow rotation of the wooden wheel, brought the brick closer to its new purpose. Not glory, not fame, just purpose. Night began to fall. The sky turned purple, then blue, then black. Stars blinked awake, one by one. The cart pulled into a clearing. A small fire was lit. The men sat around it, speaking in low tones. The bricks remained in the cart, unmoved, unbothered. The fire crackled gently, and under that deep and silent sky, the brick rested once again. It had traveled far, but it was only the beginning. The morning came quietly, as it always did, not with brilliance or fanfare, but with a patient unfolding. A gray mist first, then the soft suggestion of sunlight, creeping across the earth like a whisper. The brick, still nestled among its silent companions in the cart, felt the world warm once more. The donkey yawned. The mason stood, stretching with a low groan, brushing dust from his worn tunic. Another day had arrived. Not new, not different, just another. The cart creaked again as it began to move. And after only a short journey down a winding path of packed earth and loose gravel, they arrived. The staging ground. It was not grand, not decorated with banners or lined with torches. Just a wide, flat patch of land cleared of brush, shaped by many tired hands. Stacks of bricks stood like miniature cities. Waiting. Lumber lay in neat rows. Barrels of lime, piles of sand, and ropes, wheels, pulleys, the tools of builders who spoke more with calluses than with words. Here, the future castle would begin. But for now, it was only lines in the dirt, measurements marked by twine, flags staked into the soil. The cart stopped. The mason approached, and with a grunt, not of frustration, not of pride, just of work. He lifted the brick, not roughly, not gently, simply, practically. And with slow steps, he carried the brick to a stack already half-built. He placed it on the very top, lined it up with the others, pressed it flat, The brick now stood at rest once more, but higher this time, exposed, near the sky, above the ants and the moss and the crushed straw. The wind passed by, not cold, just there, moving through the staging ground like a guest too polite to interrupt. And all around, the sound of quiet work, murmured instructions, the scrape of metal on stone, a bucket tipping into a trough, water sloshing, the low groan of wood under weight. The brick did not mind the noise. It had known silence for centuries. Noise, it learned, was not always chaos. Sometimes it was rhythm, order, purpose. From its new perch, the brick could see more of the world. Men worked, tools moved, horses carried. Everything had a task. Everything had its time. And still, the brick waited. It would not be placed today, or tomorrow, perhaps not even next week. It had to dry, to settle, to become familiar with air and rain, with sun and dew. Time moved differently here, measured not by clocks, but by shadows, by how far the mud had dried, by how many birds passed overhead before lunch. At night, the staging ground became a different place. The workers left. The fire died down. And in that stillness, the brick remembered the quarry, the cart, the forest. Now it stood among dozens, maybe hundreds, of others. Each carved, each carried, each shaped by different hands, but destined to fit together. A family of function, bound by nothing more than quiet intent. Above, the stars blinked once again. The moon cast long shadows between the stacks. Owls sang distant songs no one understood. And the brick was still, not afraid, not curious, just present. It was no longer part of the hill, no longer lost in layers of earth. It had been chosen, lifted, carved, carried, and now it waited, not for glory, not for praise, but for placement. Soon, someone would find just the right spot. A corner of a wall, perhaps, or part of a narrow window arch, maybe even buried inside, never to be seen again. But that was okay, for the brick knew, in its own silent, patient way, that its journey had meaning, not in being remembered, but in being used. The wind stirred one last time that night. The brick remained still, and slowly, quietly, the staging ground fell asleep. The morning fog drifted slowly over the staging ground, curling through stacks of stone, settling on ropes, barrels, and wheelbarrows, like a blanket too shy to stay long. The brick lay at the top of its pile, still, calm, waiting. It had waited longer, once, for hundreds of years, beneath soil and root. This new waiting was gentler, softer, anticipatory. Today, something felt different. The mason approached. He walked without hurry. Each step was the step of someone who had walked this same ground for years. Not because he was lost, but because he was building something that would outlast his own name. He wore the same tunic, his beard now flecked with dust, his hands, as before, rough like bark. He reached out, and for the second time, the brick was lifted. There was no ceremony, no trumpet, no crowd, just the creak of a leather glove, the weight of one thing carried by another. Across the ground they went, past other stacks, past other workers, until they reached the base of something new. It wasn't a wall yet, not quite, just a line of stones and mortar, rising, slowly, into purpose. This was where the castle would begin, not with towers, not with gates, but with one wall, one row, one layer, one brick at a time. The mason paused. He studied the space with quiet care. Then, with a small trowel, he scooped up thick, gray mortar. It smelled faintly of lime, earthy, damp, like rivers and caves and old stones remembering rain. He spread it along the top of the last row, smooth, then rippled. His movements practiced but never rushed. Then, the brick. He lowered it slowly, deliberately, as if the air might shatter if he moved too fast. It touched the mortar. The mason pressed down, and there, in that soft, sticky moment, the brick became part of something bigger than itself. It did not move. It could not. But if it could feel, perhaps it would have felt pride. Not loud pride. Not proud like trumpets or banners. But quiet pride. The kind that lives deep in the center of things. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to matter. More bricks followed. One to the left. Another to the right. Each placed with care. Each pressed gently into place. The wall was slow. Walls built to last always are. Rain fell later that afternoon. Soft at first. Then steady. The workers pulled hoods over their heads. But continued. Mortar must be laid while the air is right. Not too wet. Not too dry. The brick, now part of a row, felt the rain wash over its surface. It didn't flinch. It didn't shrink. It simply accepted. This was no longer the brick from the quarry. No longer the passenger in the cart. No longer waiting in stacks. This brick had a home now. A position, a place, a purpose. It was surrounded. Above, others would come. Beside, brothers pressed shoulder to shoulder. Below, bricks that had already settled. There was no loneliness here. Only stillness. Togetherness. Strength and proximity. Night fell. The rain eased, and a mist curled along the base of the wall. Torches flickered near tents. Someone sang a soft tune in a language too old to recognize. And in the growing dark, the first wall stood. Just a few feet tall. But real. Present. Permanent. The brick felt none of the cold. It felt only the stillness. And the weight of time above it. In the quiet dark, the wall seemed to breathe. Not with lungs, but with memory. And the brick, now held firm in mortar, closed its eyes, if it had them, and slept. Not the sleep of waiting, but the sleep of finally belonging. Time passed. It didn't rush. It didn't stumble. It simply moved, like water over stone, like clouds across a gray sky. The brick was still, firm, set, part of the wall, unmoving, unforgotten. Though no one looked at it, no one touched it, no one whispered to it, the brick remained. Exactly where it was meant to be. And the seasons came. Spring arrived first. As it always did. Softly, like a child's footsteps across moss. Rain tapped gently on the castle wall. The mortar, cured and set, did not budge. The grass below grew longer. Greener. Birds flew overhead, dipping low to rest on scaffolding. The brick smelled the air, not with a nose, but with memory. That earthy scent, full of renewal and roots. Somewhere nearby, a lamb cried for its mother. A mason laughed at something someone said. The stone listened. It always did. Then came summer. The wall climbed higher. Sunlight baked the stone until it radiated a dry warmth. Shadows moved slower across the bricks now, longer and heavier by late afternoon. The mortar grew warm under the brick's edges. Tools rang against rock. Bets nested beneath wooden beams that now joined the stone. At night, the stars hung low and bright. The brick rested under a sky so wide. It seemed the castle might never reach it. Then came autumn. Leaves drifted down from distant trees. The air changed. Cooler now. Sharper. Wind slipped through the gaps in the rising towers. The scaffold stood silent more often, not because work had stopped, but because pauses were needed. The brick felt a leaf rest against its surface for a moment. It stayed there, then blew away. A boy ran past the wall one day, chasing a red ribbon. He didn't glance up. The brick watched him anyway. And then, winter. Snow came quietly. It did not announce itself. It simply arrived, one flake at a time. It gathered in corners, on ledges, on the brick itself. The stone did not shiver. It did not crack. The mortar held. Frost decorated the wall like lace. All sound softened. Even the wind. Even the world. The brick was part of that stillness. No footsteps echoed on frozen ground. No hammer rang against stone. Just silence. Pure and vast and unmoving. And then, as quietly as it had begun, winter gave way to spring again. The cycle continued. Year after year. Shadow after shadow. The wall climbed higher. Then wider. Then fuller. But the brick, that one small brick, remained exactly where it had been placed, its shape unchanged, its surface weathered, but proud. It did not seek attention. It did not ask for reward. It had become something far greater than itself, a piece of something lasting, something built not with speed or spectacle, but with care, with intention. And so, the brick slept, season after season, dreaming not of adventure, but of structure, of walls, of ceilings, of halls yet to echo with footsteps. It dreamed of being needed, not once, but always. The wall was no longer just a wall. It had grown, stretched, connected with others, stone by stone, breath by breath. And now it enclosed a space, a courtyard, still bare in places, but real, lived in. The brick had not moved. It didn't need to. Its journey had been about finding its place, and now it had one. From where it sat, mid-wall on the eastern side, it could hear the world. Not the whole world, not cities or forests or oceans, but the world within these rising walls. A new kind of world, made not of chaos, but of rhythm. Footsteps, lots of footsteps. Heavy boots, slow and certain, likely the guards. Light shoes that shuffled and skipped, probably the children. Soft soles with purposeful strides, those must be the stewards. Always counting, always checking. Each sound echoed gently through the space, bouncing off stone and mortar. As if even the air wanted to remember each step. The brick listened. It didn't need to speak. It never had. Its job had always been to hold, to support, to absorb. Laughter drifted through the courtyard sometimes. Never too loud, never jarring. Just soft bursts like bubbles in warm water. A dog barked once, then yawned, lay down, and went asleep. The wind, too, had changed. It no longer howled between bare scaffolds. Now it glided, moved gently through arches and colonnades. Sometimes it carried petals, sometimes dust, sometimes nothing at all. The brick had come to understand that silence was never really empty. There was always something to hear. A sigh, a rustle, a whisper of cloth. One day, a small boy leaned against the wall, just beside the brick. He wasn't in trouble, just tired. He pressed his back against the stone and closed his eyes. The brick held him, firm, unmoving. It took his weight as it took the wind, the sun, the rain. The boy didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Sometimes the wall was enough. Later, as evening fell, torches were lit along the inner wall. Their light flickered warmly, casting golden patterns across the stone. The brick didn't glow, but it reflected the light. Softly, almost humbly. It did not shine like glass. It did not gleam like polished marble, but it glowed in its own way, in the way of things that belong, that endure. Bells rang in the distance, calling the cooks, calling the children, calling the dusk. The sky turned violet, then deep blue, then black. The courtyard quieted again. Just footsteps now. A broom brushing stone. A whisper exchanged between two guards at their post. And the brick, still nestled in the wall, listened, absorbed, held. It had been part of a hill, then a quarry, then a cart, then a stack. And now it was part of something alive. Not alive like a heartbeat, but alive in purpose. And though no one spoke to it, no one paused to admire it, the brick did not mind. It had never wanted to be seen, only to stay, to serve, to hold. Night settled like a blanket across the castle. The stars turned slowly above, and the moon traced soft shadows across the courtyard floor. The brick closed its eyes, if it had them, and drifted into stillness once more. Not out of boredom, not out of weariness, but out of peace. Because sometimes, the most meaningful moments in life are the quiet ones. Years passed, not with fanfare, not with trumpets or calendars, but quietly, in shadows that stretched a little longer each day. and leaves that fell again and again. In the patient rhythm of weather, the brick stayed still. Its shape had not changed. Its place had not changed. But around it, the world softened. Dust settled in corners. The mortar grew gentle cracks. Not breaks. Just fine, quiet lines. Like wrinkles on an old face. And then, one morning. Moss. Just a speck. So small. It might have been mistaken for dust at first. But it wasn't dust. It was green. Living. Clinging tenderly to the surface of the stone. The brick did not resist. It never had. It let the moss settle. Let it spread slowly, quietly, like a soft thought that never needed to be said aloud. The moss was never in a hurry. It asked for nothing. It simply grew. Through early spring fogs. Through summer heat. It crept, inch by inch, along the shaded side of the wall. And in return, the brick gave it warmth from the day, and coolness from the night. A place to rest. To be. Birds began to land nearby. Some chirped softly. Some simply sat. Their tiny claws scratched the surface. But the brick did not mind. Their presence was brief, like songs you only hear once. But still remember. One bird, smaller than the rest, left a single feather caught between two stones. The wind tried to take it. But it stayed. For a while. Then one evening, rain returned. Not the kind that rushes. Not a storm. But soft, gentle rain. As if the sky had remembered something. And begun to weep. In gratitude, it slipped down the wall in slow streams. Curling around cracks. Trickling into the moss. The brick felt it. Cool. Clean. A reminder of old rivers. Of quarry walls. Of the soil where it once slept for centuries. The water left no mark. But the memory remained. As seasons circled once more, ivy appeared. Not much, just a few tendrils. Searching, the brick let them pass. By now, the wall was no longer simply structure. It was story, not written in ink, but written in cracks and moss. In small nests and corners. In sunlight that always returned. Even after the longest night, children who had once played near the wall were now grown. Some had gone. Some had stayed. And still, the brick remained. Part of something enduring. Not for glory. Not for grandeur. Just for the simple act of being where it belonged. In time, someone, a visitor, maybe, ran a hand along the wall. They paused at the moss, touched it, smiled faintly. And though they didn't know it, they had touched centuries. They had touched patience. They had touched a brick. And the brick, quiet, unchanged, unseen, held their warmth, just for a moment, then released it gently, back into the wind.